Hi everyone, my name is Dayna, and for those of you that don't know me, I am a clinical counselor with a master's in counseling psychology. I support families, parents, and kids in my practice. For those of you outside of Canada, this is a form of family therapy. And I also have a graduate diploma in education, so I was a former teacher. My goal here is to provide resources and strategies for parents when they're struggling with their children's behavior. I do parent coaching virtually. And like I promised you, I have a couple of submitted questions that I will be answering today. And again, the goal of this is to provide proactive strategies so I have less people in my private practice. I'm working myself out of a job, and to make this affordable or free information that anyone can access. So the first two questions that I received today are, one, my 3-year-old is having huge meltdowns over the smallest things. I can relate, I also have a 3-year-old. And yesterday, it was not letting them zip up their own coat. Help. Okay, let's start with this one. And sorry, I'll also tell you the second question just in case you want to skip ahead. The second question is, my 8-year-old is non-stop lying, usually about the strangest things. I usually know that they're untrue, so how do I approach this? Two amazing questions for us to start out. So let's start with the 3-year-old. Our 3-year-old is having huge meltdowns over the smallest thing. Yesterday, it was not letting them zip up their own coat. So when we're talking about 3-year-olds or any child in general, usually our behaviors are a sign of an unmet need. When it comes to zipping up your own coat, I can imagine how it must feel to have someone always offering to do everything for you. Whenever I see my kids pushing back against my instructions, I want to take a pause and ask myself, how many instructions have I been giving them in the last few minutes? Without realizing it, as parents, we usually try and correct behavior with education and stimulation, like talking. And if I take a pause, and sometimes I even record myself in our morning routine, and I re-listen to it, I realize I repeat the same information over and over and over. If I take a step back and I think about myself at work as an adult, if someone told me, hey, it's time to close up our laptops and get ready for the meeting. Hey, I just reminding you, it's time to close up your laptops and get ready for the meeting. That doesn't speed me up. In fact, it usually causes me to dig in my heels and slow things down. Kids are the exact same. So my first question to this parent would be, how many times have you told your child already to put their coat on? How many times have you offered to zip their coat up for them? If you notice that there is a large number of offers, or you catch that you've leaned in to try and zip it up multiple times already without asking them, I would say that's your first intervention. So your first intervention is to step back on the stimulation. So try and reduce the number of times that you're asking, and try and check yourself if your body language is already leaning in. Because just like us as adults, even if your 3-year-old wants your help, they're gonna push back if they feel like you have tried to push it on them already. So our first step is us. How many times have I been rushing? Secondly, a question I really, really love with young kids is, what can I do? So I always lay out how long I have to get the coat on. So we have 3 minutes now. And if I have a kid that really struggles with transitions, I usually put on a timer. So we have 3 minutes, the timer has started. What can I do to help you with this? With practice, 3-year-olds will be able to respond to this. So I can put my coat on, Mom, you can zip up the button, or zip it up. This will take time for your 3-year-old to learn. So this is when I'll just slowly start implementing. Hey honey, what can I do? I noticed that zipping is sometimes hard. So how about you put it on and I zip? if they're really pushing back against this, then that's a flag that this is a skill I'm slowly going to work on over time. What can I do? My other absolute favorite questions for kids of any age is, as the parent, when I'm setting a boundary, is laying out, sorry, I said question and it's not a question, it's a statement, how long I'm available for. And especially if I have a tendency to over prompt or over question, like get your coat on, get your coat on, get your coat on. When I've caught that in myself, I take a step back and I say, hey, I'm available to help you with your coat for the next 1 minute. And for that 1 minute, you can tell me how you need help. Outside of that 1 minute, I won't be able to help you any longer. Now, I'm sure the parent of this 3-year-old is listening and going, that's gonna cause a huge tantrum in my house. Yeah, it probably will. And that's okay, right? We're slowly building resilience and we're implementing a new strategy, and that usually has some pushback at the start. So I'm available for the next 1 minute. And I pick this with something that doesn't really matter if we don't get it done. So I'm not super worried about it. So a coat zip up is a great example, because eventually, I hate to say this, your kid is gonna get cold and they're going to want to zip their coat up or come inside. So eventually we're gonna have a natural consequence. So I'm available for the next 1 minute, and then the hard part for you as the parent is sticking to that I'm available for. This in the long run is really going to help your child hear your instruction and respond to it in a way that probably feels better for you, a little bit faster. Why? Because they learn that you are gonna have boundaries around how much you help. If you're anything like me and you're a natural helper, we tend to say, hey honey, like I'll help you get ready for school. And then they ask me and I'm like, oh, I'm getting my stuff on and then I'll help you. And we tend to extend how long we help. And then we get a little bit resentful because our kids don't accept our help in the moment that we offer it and tend to ask later and later, because they've learned that, hey, yeah, she's offering help now, but I don't really want to do it now. And so if she asks me again in 2 minutes, or if I ask her later or in 2 minutes or as we're walking out the door, that's okay, she'll still help me. So we're just trying to practice some boundary setting with our kids. So zipping up coat. Our 3 interventions, or our 3 strategies that I want you to add to your toolbox that you're gonna try are: 1, noticing how often am I stepping in before my child is ready for me to? So how often am I asking them to get their coat on, and how often am I leaning in and trying to zip up the coat without their permission? 2, what can I do to help? So we set that timer and we lay out what can I do to help you, and we kind of highlight where the problem area is. So this one I would do not at getting coat on time. I would probably do it the night before. Hey, tomorrow morning, I know that getting our coats on is a little bit difficult. What can I do to help you? So we're having our what can I do to help you, and then our 3rd strategy is my ultimate favorite one, how long I'm available for. So this one's an in the moment strategy. So in the moment, I'm asking my child, I'm stating to my child, again, said asking, I'm stating to my child how long I'm available for, and then I'm gonna practice holding that boundary. So coat is a perfect place to practice holding that boundary, to building some resilience with our kids, building some resilience within ourselves, and having clear guidelines, outline how we will be interacting, for how long we'll be interacting, so we don't start to build up that resentment in our relationship for over helping or for our kids not listening when we're offering help. I hope those 3 are helpful. I would love to hear your response to those 3 strategies, and we'll move on to our next one. So our next one is my 8-year-old is non-stop lying, usually about the strangest things, and I know that they're untrue. how do I approach this? This one is actually quite common in my practice. And I want to start by sharing an example from myself. So I was trying to connect with a child that I was teaching a few years ago. And this child said to me, "Hey, I'm 4'8". And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool. I'm 5'8". And then as soon as it came out of my mouth, I paused and I was like, what am I saying? I'm not 5'8". I'm 5'9". Why did I just lie there? And because we had a safe relationship, obviously I was the adult and that was the child. I was able to say, oh, wait a second. I don't know why I just said that. I'm 5'9". I'm not 5'8". And I reflected on this after. And I asked myself, what? Like, where'd that come from? Why did I just spill that out? And I realized it had to do with belonging. So if I could replace the word mental health with any word, it would be belonging. We are all striving for belonging. And belonging to me has 3 core needs. It has the need for connection, has the need for autonomy, for some control, and it has the need for purpose. Am I part of something bigger? Am I helping towards something? Do I have a role here? And with that connection need, what we often look for in relationships are similarities to bond over, to connect over. And we naturally do this. And kids really do this at a subconscious level. But as I learned in that experience, I do this too a lot at a subconscious level. And I'm wondering if you can relate to this at all. If you think about a time where someone shared something maybe personal and then you shared that you had experienced something the same or similar, and then afterwards walked away from that conversation and thought, why did I share that? Or that's not actually how I feel about that situation. And that's because our desire to belong, to connect, is sometimes so subconscious that we spit things out to build that connection before we really have time to logically process them. Kids will do this about really strange things. You might overhear your child saying to a friend that tells them they play guitar, yeah, I play guitar too. You're like, no, you don't. And you really want to intervene and protect them from that lie, from saying that lie and getting called out on it. And sometimes they do that with us. Yeah, when I was in my 20s, I traveled through Europe. Yeah, my mom, I was with you too. No, you weren't. I would know that you were. And so if we're talking about lies, and because this email said they usually lie about the strangest things, I'm assuming that some of these things are not about our other motivation with lying, which is protecting ourselves from the shame or from the guilt of dealing with the consequence of what we've done, and more around the motivation of connecting. How do we deal with this? What kind of strategy do we have to intervene here? My favorite strategy would be to talk about why it makes sense. And with kids, when I'm talking about why it makes sense we've done a behavior, I usually use myself as the example. So I just did that with you on here when I shared, yeah, I told a lie to this kid when I was trying to connect with them about my height. If I was working with a kid or I was talking to my own children, which I guess I forgot to mention in the introduction, I do have 2 children, then I would talk about why it makes sense from an experience that I had around a similar age. So I remember when I was in elementary school and every kid in my class could already ride a pedal bike and I was still on training wheels. But whenever I went to school and people started talking about pedal biking, I said I could too, just because I wanted them to think I was cool or I wanted to fit in. Or I remember when everyone my age was allowed to watch Simpsons and I wasn't at my house. And so I would pretend that I knew what was going on with the conversation. And then it felt really uncomfortable when they asked me specific questions about who Lisa is or who Bart was, and I didn't know the answers. I'm wondering if that stuff still happens in elementary school. And so I don't specifically point out my kid because I don't want to fire up their amygdala and move them into that place of a stress response, because then we can't have a conversation about it. What I want is to have a conversation with their logic brain where I'm using myself as the vulnerable example. And then I just kind of want to spread it out as, is this something that still happens at your age? Or I'm curious if this is something that still happens at your age. And then we can kind of have this conversation that doesn't feel like it's specifically about them. And these reflective conversations are really what I find very productive in building that connection between parent and child. And in my experience, personally and professionally, this is what creates the safe space for the child to then initiate, to have that autonomy to start the conversation when they want to talk specifics about their own experiences. Yeah, Mom, I told everyone that I've had my first kiss and I really, really haven't, right? So when we can kind of build these conversations up by talking about why behaviors make sense, when those uncomfortable topics do come up, then it's easier for our child to start talking about them. And we will start to see, to tie it back to this email question, we will start to see a reduction in this lying behavior to fit in, because one, our child's going to notice that it happens and be a little bit better at putting a pause in before they respond. And two, they're going to start practicing being a little bit uncomfortable with being different and knowing that they have that safe space to talk about it with you. And so for now, these are our first two questions. I'm really happy that these two audience members took time to submit them to us. I'm hoping that we get a few more, and then we're going to keep sharing these little videos and eventually start talking to other people live so we can have some conversations and meet our mission of supporting as many families as we can with proactive strategies, proactive resources, so we get less people in mental health practices like my own doing reactive work, and again, making it free and affordable for as many people as we can.